All right, so definitely we have a packed show as usual, and I'm going to be introducing some of our guests. We have joining us, we have Ms. Oluseye Oyebisi, is the Executive Director at the Nigerian Network of NGOs, and we have Mr. Dakpo Akinyosun, who's a Senior Advocate of Nigeria. We also have Mr. Ezekiel Inyaitok, who is the Executive Director of the Federal Housing Authority, and we have, and I'll just start with Mr. Oyebisi. Now, great to have you on our running coverage of the End Bad Governance protests all over the country. I'd like to get your perspective. Day one is gone. We're here now. Day two. How would you describe the situation today? Is it meeting your expectations? All right. Mr. Oyebisi, I don't know if you can hear me. Okay.
Yes, I can.
Oh, fantastic. Now I hear you. Now, I don't know if you heard my question. You know, it's day two, and definitely we know how day one started, you know, with lootings and reports of violence. And here we are, day two. To me, it seems kind of calm, but how are you seeing it so far?
I think so far the evidence is showing that it is calm. We would have to wait till the end of day to have a stock taking of what may have happened. But when you look at the nature of protest these days, from the fact that it is now often leaderless, to also the use of social media, and that you don't really have the organized way of protest that we used to have in those days, where there are branded T-shirts for you to be able to identify the protesters and also those that are not protesting. It means that there's a pressure on both the organizers and also the police that will be managing the protest, including now linking this to the need for public safety and officer safety. So from what we've seen yesterday, I'm using the word pockets loosely now, to say that we've seen a lot of, some level of violence, which again we condemn. We've also seen how in some instances, the pro-police were able to be friendly and douse situations. We've seen reports of where brutality and harassment has happened on the part of the police, and it seems that we're not learning any lesson that fast. We do hope that within the rights that is available to all of us as citizens to protest, we would also, as citizens, take some level of responsibility as to ensure that those protests becomes peaceful. Yes, there's some level of minimal disturbance that is allowed. So when I heard your colleague talking about not being able to go to a house or other colleagues sleeping in the office, that's the minimal level of disturbance that we all have to face, because the common denominator is that, one, there's hardship in the country, and that people are poor. So what the protest has shown us is that it's the scale and the nature of hardship that we see or find across the country, and we're all in this together.
Right.
So for those who may not be able to get to their offices or get to their homes, this is minimal at this time.
All right, Mr. Oyebisi, definitely, in times like these, where you have protests, you always have the group that is not really participatory when it comes to, protests. And I want you to talk to me about, we've had reports of, some states that are peaceful, people are not really going out there to protest. What do you think is the thinking of people that are not really protesting, at this time?
For me, there are a lot of motivations for protesting, and whether you are for or against, it is within your right. I'm not a lawyer, but I do know that it is within your right to either join a protest or not join a protest. However, the motivations are different, okay? For example, if I have a good income and I can afford the basics that I need to survive, I may just tell you, why are you guys protesting? Let's be understanding. But if I don't have those basics, then my motivation for getting on the street is 110%. So while we would not criticize those that have joined and those who may not have joined, the point is we're all in this together, meaning that if you had gone to the market some 6, 7, 8 months ago, you would have bought a Congo of rice for maybe 1,000 or 800 naira. Now today it's going to maybe 4,000 naira or thereabout. If my market analysis is right, I do know that egg used to be 20 naira. All right, it is now going to 150 naira. All right, a crate is 6,000, 7,000 naira. A crate you used to buy at 800 naira. All right, so for those of us that still cook, sometimes when you're hungry, you quickly buy noodles at say 40, 50 naira. Get 20 naira egg under 100 naira, 150. You have eaten. You dare not do that now. So we're all feeling the heat. So if anyone says they are not going to join, it is within their right again. However, what may have happened in times past, maybe the experience with NSAS, the threats that may have come as a result of preparations towards this response towards the protest itself, the way the governors may have engaged, the way the police may have engaged, there are multiple reasons that could have given us what we are seeing in other states that have come. And we need to pay attention to that, because that would also help the police in looking at, or the government as a whole, in their citizens' engagement strategy, but also the police itself in how to police, protest more peacefully.
The issue here is not whether or not there is a tenable basis for, the agitation. Perhaps the challenge is that of whether or not we saw it coming. I like something that you said the other time when you talked about the fact that people could buy some things a little while ago, but now it's a little different. The costs, are different. There are those who would remember that even as far back as the 70s, they started talking about things being difficult. And it's really dramatic. What will they say if they were alive now? But let me ask Mr. Dapo Akinyosun, who is a senior advocate of Nigeria, also joining us here in this conversation. Well, Mr. Akinyosun, I'm pretty sure that you've been observing things from before yesterday up until this moment. What's your general assessment of what's gone on so far?
Well, I'll take off from something Mr. Abushe said earlier. And he said, what are the lessons we have learned? I think one of the lessons we can learn clearly from this is that when we have a rapid protest, organizers of protests should also be a bit more organized in the way we do things. Because we start it, but we're not able to control how it goes out of hand. And whilst our objectives may be noble in going out, while we want to make ourselves heard, we need to get government to listen to us. A situation where it gets out of hand, is overrun by miscreants, is a serious cause for concern and worry. Because it leads to massive destruction and looting, and you saw what happened in Kano yesterday. We can see what is going on in some parts of the country. I think that as organizers of protests, we also need to begin to take some of these things a bit more serious. When we started, we should be able to think it through and have means of putting it into control and curbing. I do recall that somebody mentioned, I think it was Ebun Adegboro ICN, who said that I think one day of protest is good. If we do one day, it's a one-in shot. We cannot get everything we want in 10 days. If we keep at it, it's going to lead to massive destruction, and it just gets out of control. But if you do it one day at a time, with one government, we can do this, we'll come back. I think it gives a balance to everybody. They know that, yes, you have the capacity, yes, you have pulled back, even though you're not getting all that you want. It also serves as a pull to the government. Hey, you need to listen to these guys and stop. So I think progressively, as we see it going, it started well on day one, you made the point. Day two, in some places, is being chaotic, and we want to avoid a situation where lives are lost and properties destroyed just because we want to get our voices heard.
Spot on, Mr. Akinyosun, because that's the advocacy everyone has been on for a while. But I'm also sure that Terry and Kayla have a guest there with them.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. We have architect Ezekiel Nyaya here, who is the Executive Director of the Federal Housing Authority. He's also spoken on several public issues. Welcome to the program.
Thanks, and what a privilege for having me.
You're always welcome.
Nice to hear. Thank you.
I think I'll just kick off from the last thing that Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Dagba Kionshu, said, where he said that he fears that the escalation could be because the organizers of the protests were not organized enough. Is that something you agree to?
1, 2, 3 things. I think it's important I lay certain disclosures. First is that I'm a public servant, and it's important for that to be known. Second is that I come here not to speak for government, so to speak. I come here as a responsible citizen. To that end, I fear that I could stand certain risks, but life is about the 3 C's, the chances that come your way, the choices that you make, and the consequences of your choices. And for me, I'm willing for whatever consequence, but the time has come when people that mean well for this country must stand up and speak. And let that be more important to you than your office and protecting your office. So I took the risk of doing what I'm doing. The first thing is that I believe that it is right for people to protest. I believe it. I think it's a fundamental right of people. The second thing is that for whatever you do, you must think of the essence. Why am I doing this? What do I want to achieve? When you answer those 2 questions, it makes you to now have a game plan as to what you want to do. A protest could either be a sponsored stuff to hit the government in power, or it could be a natural cry of the citizens that things are bad. So whether you're in government, you're out of government, you all go to the same market, things are not okay. I personally feel that things are not okay. And incidentally, I've never one day heard Mr. President saying it's all rosy and dandy. I think I've heard him say that things are difficult, okay? So within that context, for us to have a 10-day protest, there are 2 extreme ends of every protest. One end is what happened at NSAS. I flew into Lagos and I went to Alausa. I spent some time and I came up with the fact that there's hope for Nigeria because I saw young people organized, they were articulate, they shared food. When they finished, they cleaned up the place. I was elated. I felt good. On the other extreme of the protest, what happened at NSAS, which is a hijack of miscreants and people who started looting the shops of people. And let me just end on a little story. One of my friends came to me, and for once in a long time, I actually shed tears. His uncle had gone and borrowed money from a bank, did a good business plan, brought in stuff, and that day they looted that stuff and he secured the money with his only family house. That man died not long after because of what happened. That's what an extreme end of protest could be. So you want to isolate that extreme end. You want to magnify the end of what happened at NSAS, at the toll gate, and as a result, you come up with something that makes sense. Within that context, I believe that if they had this sort of game plan, 10 days, like the prof said, 10 days is not too much if it's organized, because I would agree 10 days. First 2 days, I say it loud. Say it loud, catch attention, and that was very successfully done on one side. Next 2 days, you go in and articulate and organize. That means Saturday, Sunday, you go back home, articulate, no protest, you organize. It's still part of the game plan. Then the next 4 days, you now hold town hall meetings and citizen engagement meetings, because the game plan that you've brought as your demands came from who? I want to know, like a constitution, that it came from the office of the citizen. So the next 4 days, you hold all manner of town hall meetings, citizens engagement at all levels, right down to the grassroots. Then at day 8, you now have a kind of activation of the office of the citizen and be able to articulate what you may call a communique, a final agreement. And on day 10, you now engage government. When government sees that plan, I foresee a situation where the president himself will like to be in that hall.
I mean,
the Senate president would like to be in that hall. Senior citizens will be in that hall. And you present what the young people of Nigerians are saying to government. If we do this, I think that even the president will thank the young people, and we would have started a process that will activate the office of the citizen, that will put the feet to the fire of every government official.
Well, we're talking about the organization of this protest. You know, it's a little difficult for people to be able to say, oh, this is what you should have done, this is what you should have done differently, because you don't know who you're speaking to in particular. But I want to be able to talk about the situation that we are looking at right now, a situation where we're dealing with a lot of miscreants. And I've been asking this question since yesterday. What's the difference between this and NSAS, and how were we able to handle this massive number of hoodlums?
Okay.
Because, you know, what usually happens is the people say, oh, no. You cannot be calling protesters hoodlums. But there are genuine protesters, and then there are miscreants. The handling of miscreants overrunning a legitimate, peaceful protest is one that I haven't been able to get an answer to when it comes to security agencies between NSAS and today. What do you make of that?
I'll tell you this. I like to be as realistic as possible. The Nigerian army, the Nigerian police, all the military and the paramilitary put together cannot effectively police 774 local governments. They can't. As a result, you need to try not to create a situation where the miscreants will take advantage of. You see, these people that we call miscreants, at the risk of being misunderstood, when you sit down and look at a young man who finished school for 3 years, he has no food, he has no job. You look at the young people on the streets, things are hard. Everybody wants to survive. So they are looking for an opening. Can you create an opening? As these people are planning protests, they are planning the shops.
I mean, we do have the spokesperson of the police with us right now. Mr. Muyiwa Adejobi is joining us via Zoom. Good evening, sir. I think we're having a bit of an issue with his
Mr. Adejobi, can you hear us?
Yes, I'm here with you. I can hear you.
Okay, but your volume is a little low. We need to be able to hear you. All right, thank you. Thank you so much for making out the time to join us on the program. But, you know, we do have to ask you this question. And it has to do with the police handling of the situation. We listened to the Inspector General of Police yesterday, giving us exactly what has happened and what the plans are. But, you know, just so we can get from you, what was different in the handling of this situation from the way it was handled during NSAS?
Thank you so much. This is a different scenario entirely compared to what we had during SARS. But if it's not properly managed, we may end up having it like what we had in SARS. You know, this particular one is across the 36 states, including the Federal Capital Territory, unlike the SARS that had its epicenter in the southern part of Nigeria, particularly Lagos State. Now, with what we have experienced so far, in line with our earlier intelligence gathered from all angles, from the police and from intelligence community in Nigeria, we had earlier warned that something like this will happen. And this is what we are experiencing now. Situation where we have declared a protest and the organizers actually tagged the process 10 days of reach. I asked that question yesterday. Can somebody define the word reach for me in simple English or in this context? However, we have seen that it's obvious, and like what we had in our earlier intelligence, we have noticed that certain individuals are actually out to cause trouble, to cause mayhem, to cause anarchy in this country. Just barely 2 hours to the protest yesterday, we had recorded shooting, we had recorded killing, we had recorded looting, massive destruction of property. We have even seen where our men cited some of them with arms in, I'm sure of Kano, and I'm sure of Kaduna. Maybe you have not been told that armored personnel carrier in Kaduna was damaged yesterday. For you to know how heavy such attacks would be on security forces, particularly the Nigeria Police Force. I want to say, with what we have seen, some of us who are experts in security and conflict management will agree with me that this is a riotous situation, not a protest anymore. And the IGP addressed the nation yesterday, and I think it was covered live around 8:30 or 8:40 p.m. yesterday, where the IGP alerted the whole nation that all of us have been put on red alert. The IGP rolled out certain incidences yesterday, some of the attacks and some of the looting and massive destruction we recorded. In Borno, you agree with me that we lost some people who actually came out to do this protest. And the funniest thing, or something that's very sad, is that if you see the video, the clips you see young infants being pushed out to come and partake in this protest. Those who do not even know what is demonstration, what is protest, or what is my right in the Constitution. So the IGP has made it clear yesterday that we will not in any way tolerate any act of anarchy. And I think, as a security expert, that by now the original and genuine organizers of this protest ought to have pulled out. Because if they still continue in this manner, we'll see that there are certain individuals who are trying to leverage on this protest to cause anarchy. Just yesterday in Lugbe, in the Federal Capital Territory, around 9:30 p.m., armed hoodlums took over the Lugbe end of the Shehu Yaradua Expressway. That is the major airport expressway. And they were attacking people, looting their properties, engaging, they even engaged the police in gun battle to an extent. I think the command FCT has made a statement today to alert particularly medical practitioners to help us look for those patients who have bullet wounds. In line with the law, we want them to accept them. But while accepting them and giving them treatment, they should inform the police accordingly. And let me quickly say again that before we allow another dimension to come into this protest, I think all of us as a nation, all of us as Nigerians, we should be able to be on the same page and call these organizers to order. You agree with me again that all these groups have come out. None of them has complied with the regulation, with the rules, and our mutual agreement of one, confining in a very designated place for their protests, not to have street processions. And you can see that in all the cities now where please, so we have these protests.
Mr. Adejobi, can you hear me?
We are having all of them. Hello, yes?
Can you hear me? Let's, just so that we don't run through and then compound information, let's get an update on the situation in what happened in Lugbe. We're yet to see the FCT updates, but could you please help us sort of expatiate on what exactly transpired in Lugbe last night, and perhaps any update, any arrests so far?
Yes, that's what I'm saying. Yes, that's what I'm saying. The Commissioner of Police, FCT, has deployment to this area. Not only the Lugbe as this, we have seen pockets of hoodlums in some places, even at this close to area 11 here, you see young ones welding stores attacking SUV. I think the mentality they have is anybody riding on SUV is working for the president or working for somebody. And many innocent Nigerians have been attacked. You can see, I see the clip you play now. I think that is Lugbe last night. It was so serious that we engaged them in tears gun battle. Situation where we have protesters armed with arms, ammunition, dangerous weapons, offensive weapons, is no more a protest. Where we have recorded a case or cases of arson. Arson means setting ablaze property. I'm sure in Suleja, a local government was touched. I'm sure in Kano, many private places looted, and even last time recovered from them. In same Kano, a policeman was attacked, his rifle taken away, but we are very smart enough to have recovered our rifle from him. So we know where we have massive destruction and this kind of unguided and unplanned disorganized protest, it may lead to anarchy, and we don't need that this time around. So the IGP has been talking to our very senior officers, CP of commands, that they should give him adequate, prompt, and transparent situation reports across the country. So we thought we have on ground where we should engage these rioters professionally. We are going to do that professionally, diplomatically, and tactically. We don't want to lose anyone again. A policeman was murdered yesterday in such a during that protest in Kaduna, where 2 were severely injured and many security operatives were attacked. I'm sure in Borno, such a thing happened. In Kebbi, we recorded that. In Katsina, we recorded that. In Yobe, we recorded that. So you can see the number of vehicles that were set ablaze yesterday in Kebbi. This is
if you can hear me,
it's a riot.
Yeah.
And where we have a riot,
just one moment, Mr. Adejobi, if you can hear me.
What they should. It's the job of the police to take charge.
Just a second, Mr. Adejobi, if you can hear me. Perhaps it's a good time to quickly ask you if you can hear me, Mr. Adejobi. Just 1 second, Mr. Adejobi, if you can hear me. Perhaps it'll be a good time for us to find out from you what the numbers are. We listened with my colleagues in Abuja earlier. Chamberlain and Malkwe were reading out a statement from some civil society organization saying, oh, these are the number of people that have been produced. Mr. Adejobi, if you can hear me. So earlier on, before my colleagues Malkwe and Chamberlain were done in the first part of our broadcast this morning, they read a statement that details certain information. The number of people that have died, the number of people that have been arrested, the number of, just some data here and there. So I don't know, is this something you can give us off the top of your fingers, or if it's something you have right there with you? Number of people that have died in different parts of the country, number of people that have been arrested, the number of local governments in the country out of the 774 that are involved in this particular protest at this time. Do you have the figures?
Right. Got of the number of casualties, the number of arrests, recoveries made. This what I'm doing now is just to update Nigerians and the whole world of happenings in Nigeria presently. But we are coming out with detailed report and information as regards the incidences, number of hoodlums or miscreants arrested, number of property, facility damage, and the likes. We are coming out with detailed reports on that. But for now, I can tell you for free that we are still curtailing this riotous situation.
Okay.
I'm sure in some places...
We'll come back to you, Mr. Adejobi. Just wanted to get those figures, and I'm hoping that it's something that we can get within the hour or two so that people will know, and then whatever support we can all give to the police, we can give. Mr. ABC, you've listened to the first PRO, and I'm sure that Mr. Kiyoshi has also listened. But let me ask you, Mr. ABC, what are your thoughts? How convinced are you that the engagement of the police as at this time is good enough in the face of prevailing circumstance?
Well, I totally understand the pressure on the police at this time. That of public safety, as I've said, and that of officer safety. And one sympathizes again with the Nigerian police force on the death of one of their colleagues, and also on the death of citizens that we have. However, we need to frame this narrative very well. One is to ascertain the fact that no sane protester would go to a protest place with tools that can harm. All right. In separating that, wherever you find someone with guns, with machete, and other things that can harm, then it is the role of the police to arrest such a person and prosecute. We have witnessed, and I'm using the word pocket loosely, all right, to say that the destructions and the attacks that we have seen, they are condemnable. However, we should not use that in now framing how the whole of the protest is looking like. All right. And you all agree with me that, we have a social and economic failure here, which is affecting all over. We've seen how the Commissioner of Police in Lagos State has spoken to those in Ojota, and they've listened, they have cooperated. We saw how citizens spoke to police that were harmed, and the guys turned back and led the protest. So we should highlight those. But in highlighting those as well, we should also pay attention to areas where we have the violence and where we need the police to now identify those, for lack of better word, hoodlums, and prosecute. Of course, one is impressed when you see how, the police updated us on, the arrests that have been made in Kano. which is progress, but it doesn't affect. We shouldn't use that as a framing or a national framing for how the protest is going. We've seen a lot of best practices that we need to highlight as well. And while we encourage that protesters should ensure that this is not violent, and that they keep to the conversation and put the issues on the table, and that government is listening, we do also want to say that the police has a role to facilitate that protection. All right. And in doing that, I understand the pressure that will be on the police, especially when police brutality would also be part of the conversations. All right. I was listening to the civil defense when, the director of civil defense was saying, see, people will charge at you, but it doesn't give you a right to do anything negative. Those are lessons that I thought we've learned from NSAS. We now need to find a way of communicating more better, ensuring that we can reduce the pressure on officers that are also managing the protest themselves. And this is where we all come in. This calls for an uncommon, solidarity. But in doing that, we must also ensure that we balance the narrative in ways that doesn't, create more agitations within the community of, those whether protesting or not protesting, and that we isolate the issues. Isolating them meaning, yes, there are areas where we've seen riots. There are areas where we have seen attack on police and also attack on citizens. We need to ensure that we prosecute those properly within the laws, such that for the future, when such happens, people are deterred from doing such kind of acts. And I think that's the kind of framing that I would want us to take away. That one, we sympathize with those that may have lost anyone's. The beauty of any protest is when citizens, everybody that have gone on the road, gets back to their bed happily. No one has died, whether a police or a citizen. That's when a protest is successful. However, we regret that we have seen these things happening and put more pressure on both security agencies and all of us, even as civil society, who wants to lose anyone. We don't want to start counting statistics anymore. And that's why I'm saying that, let's find ways, that uncommon solution of ensuring that, government listens and addresses their concerns, but we also address issues of violence and also the riots that we're seeing in this process.
All right, thank you for that, Mr. Oyebisi. But let me take it back to Mr. Adejobi now. Definitely, in Nigeria, we got data from the MBS that over 60% of Nigerians are multidimensionally poor. That means no access to education, food, and basic amenities. So, looking at the situation in Kenya, Uganda, we've seen protests from young people, and they've turned, violent. So, I'd like to get your perspective, when it comes to policing areas or countries with high poverty. How difficult is it really?
As a student of history, I know this is not the first time we're having hardship in this country. 40 years ago, a Fuji musician called Sikira Indevarista, when I was going, sang a song 40 years ago that yam has been so costly, beans so costly, Ichutiwan, Garitiwan, that is in Yoruba, which means everything is on the high side. 40 years ago. We still continue to do, and this is not limited to Nigeria. It's a global problem, global phenomenon, global meltdown that is affecting all of us. But the question is government responsive and responding to all these issues? Because yes, I'm not speaking for the government. I'm not a spokesman to the president. I'm not the Honorable Minister of Information. But I know, as a Nigerian too, that they have been doing certain things that I'm sure the ministry will roll out to Nigerians to know, which they have been doing. But we need to just oppose this and marry the two together. We cannot say because I have a headache, I want to cut off the head. The thing is that in any protest, to me, I know as a student in University of Ibadan, when I was going too, as a student union leader, they taught me that we should have 3 phases into any struggle we want to do. The 3 C's. The first one is consultation. We need to have our demands, present our demands to them. And then after consultation, we need to have consolidation, where we'll be able to say, okay, have they attended to this? Let me check my list. Have they done this? Yes. Have they done this? Yes. If they have not done anything, then you can resort to confrontation. That's when you continue to have protests, you continue to have strikes and the like. But now, so far so good, I have not seen anybody to have taken charge of this process I've highlighted, All we saw was to say we are going to come out August 1, 2024. So it is. We need to understand that everywhere across the globe is affected, not only Nigeria. And we need to engage our leaders. It's not our voices cannot only be heard in the street. That is what we are saying. And so far, so good. To this point now, there is no leader in Nigeria. There is no leader in ECOWAS, West African sub-region, or an African continent that have not heard that there is a protest in Nigeria, which means our voices have been heard. And I'm sure the government will do what they should. By now, today, I think they should have consolidated on what they had yesterday, present a letter of request to them, the way the first set of organizers of ESAT did in 2020. October 8th, the first thing they did was to come with a letter or letters of demand. I was the PRO in Lagos State. They gave it to my commissioner of police. He gave it to me. And we endorsed it to the then Inspector General of Police, Adamu, to work on it. And they marched down to Alahusa to go and give to the governor. The governor was not in the office. The speaker came. They said, no, they will give to the deputy governor. The deputy governor came, Prince Hamza. He came and he collected the letter from them. So far, so good. I've not seen any organized process or situation where the organizers will have prepared their demands and present this to the government, or to have presented to the IG, or to any minister, or to the governor somewhere, that please help us relay this to the president. All people wanted was to come out, to come have process, street procession, and turn everything to anarchy. So I want to say that we need to understand that we have issues in Nigeria, whether social dislocation, decadence in moral values, and so many things could have attributed to this. You have seen where protesters are smoking in their home openly. You have seen where somebody carried a young toddler, a young girl of 2 months old, to where they're having protests. Nobody is discussing this. I expected NGOs, civil society organizations to have raised this issue and even talk to the woman that how will you carry a lady, a young baby of 2 months old, to any protest ground? These are the problems we have. Holistically, we need to analyze the issues we have in this country. Don't forget, Nigeria is a very complex society. Demographically, we are complex. Geographically, we are complex. Religious, we are complex. Ethnicity-wise, we are complex. So it's a complex nation with our population, with so many things we have. So we need to understand and always tolerate one another so that I can be on the same page when we address issues like this. Nigeria is our home. We can't afford Nigeria to be run down. And we need to protect our sovereignty as a nation. In brotherhood, we must stand. In motherhood, we must stand. So the esprit de corps in us must come at this point in time. It's part of us to support one another, to love one another, and understand and engage our leaders diplomatically when we have issues like this at hand.
All right, thank you for that, Mr. Adejobi. And definitely, if you're a protester at this time, please leave the kids at home. But let me hand things over to, we have Kayla and Terry now. Let's see what's happening in Abuja.
Yeah, let me just stay with Mr. Adejobi before he leaves us. I don't know if the police is assessing the performance of officers there, because there are concerns as to whether the police came into this protest with the scars and trauma of the NSAS, and how the police have reacted, because in some cases the police have been accused of escalating the situation. We know about the cases in Abuja. Our reports say that protesters were approaching and the police, instead of engaging them, threw tear gas at them. I don't know what the police has to say about that.
Let me start by saying we had one earlier on that we'll be having issues of fake news. It's part of the strategies to be adopted, and that's why we call on Nigerians to always verify from us. The issue of policemen engaging them does not arise because actions and reactions are equal and opposite in size. A journalist was beaten yesterday, and when they approached the IGP, he raised the same issue that they said in Yanya Aziz that policemen engaged them, where a police commission was vandalized. The IG asked that journalist that, were you attacked? Did you attack them before they attacked you? Oh, this is a journalist, a non-journalist working with the NTA, was attacked yesterday seriously, plasters on his face. So the issue at the stadium was that the CP went there and was trying to tell them not to block the, I think, Shehu Musa Yaradua Expressway, that popular airport road, that they are to be in the stadium. And the argument came that no, they can't be in the stadium. And after that, there were issues that, okay, we need to march, and they marched down to the Eagle Square, where they said they should not use, and even there's a court judgment that said they should not use the Eagle Square. And of course, police were talking to them, back to a designated place for you. They said no, and they took over everywhere. As they're having that protest in the Eagle Square, they were having one in Yanya, they were having one in Karu, and more than 10 places they assembled. Let's find out from those that stayed in Lube Kubwa. They were attacking them. They were attacking them in Cuba, extorting Nigerians, collecting money from them. And it got to a state that even we could not even see any identified or recognized organizers of these protests anymore. So how do you manage this kind of a crowd when you started something and nowhere to be found? So we have been civil so far. None of our officers has come out with the idea or mentality of the PTSD of NSAS. No, we have been civil, and IGP made it clear we are to be civil. We are going to engage this situation, and every situation we find ourselves professionally, diplomatically, in line with the provisions of the law. So far, so good. We have not been violent. We have been so civil. You can see many pictures I can share with you where our men are even giving water, some junks, snacks, and what have you. Where they need help, we have been giving them help. But where we have noticed that the situation is becoming riotous, the law has permitted us to apply minimum force to subdue unnecessary riots in Nigeria. For goodness sake, the same constitution we use. The constitution has given people the right to protest. He has given them exceptions to those rights. And read section 40 of the constitution, section 45 of the constitution, and then go and read the powers of the police in this regard. So we just need to
when you talk about minimal force, we're very much concerned because it's expected that the police would be able to distinguish between peaceful protesters and hoodlums, as you've put it. But when you find journalists in the mix of this being tear gassed, our colleague lost his phone or damaged his phone in the process of this. I don't know what justification you could say you have. Perhaps you could explain the justification for tear gassing peaceful protesters and journalists. Look at the situation in Rivers State. You commend the handling of the protest by the commissioner of police there, where he engaged these protesters who at the time were adamant, but somehow it did not escalate.
How do you describe peaceful protesters? In this context, what definition we are going to give to them? Because so far, so good, very few that have been seen organized, not even in Abuja, in some other places in the south. They have been so peaceful, they have been so organized. But what we are having now in Abuja, what we are having now in some other states, to us and for experts, if properly analyzed and we have proper perception of it, it is not a peaceful protest again. Rather, it's to be called a riot. And when we have a riotous situation, like I said, we have rule of engagement. Phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, up to the last resort of using of firearms. And so far, so good. We have been using tear gas. We have been using water cannon. The IGP was able to procure enough tear gas, and because we had notice on time, and we were able to have and distribute, deploy accordingly to forestall breakdown of law and order. And for those who came to us through the Analysts, the IGP was able to tell them that your venue to be used across these 8 states, the indicated 8 states, and the IGP made provisions for them at these venues. But behold, many of them were not even, yesterday they were not ready to use some of these designated places. We believe in Nigeria that we always want to cause pains, agonies, discomfort to people before people will understand that we're having a protest. You can have your protest in a place, all the media houses in Nigeria, online bloggers, all of them cover all these events live. All we want is that our voice must be heard. And the voice has been heard so far, so good. So what are we still doing in the streets?
We'll be able to talk to you a little bit about civil society and what civil society is saying about the protests yesterday. I want to give you, this is from the Organized Civil Society of Nigeria, the coalition. Death toll, according to them, 21. Injuries, 175. This is just day 1. Injuries 175. Number of arrests 1,154. Curfews declared at the time, Yobe, Maiduguri, and Kano. They're saying that the police force urgently needs to improve on their professionalism while redoubling their tactical capacity in managing civil protesters and in apprehending miscreants and hoodlums sponsored to infiltrate and discredit civil protests. This way that the situation has been handled, in your view, is this international best practice? Was this done, in your view, the right way? Or are there things in the handling of these hoodlums and miscreants, and of course differentiating them from legitimate protesters? Are there things that the police could have done differently?
Let me say, you preaches equity must come with clean hands. In the first instance, those who are alleging that police have not been so professional, have they obeyed the simple rule of law? We must be law-abiding in this country. In the first instance, the IGP deployed men at the stadium, MK Abiola Stadium in Abuja, where we expect the genuine protesters who have indicated interest to assemble. Are they still there? If they are there, why did they leave that place? So let us understand the scenario well. And for people who are rolling out statistics, you cannot claim to be more Roman Catholic than the Pope. It is the job of security agencies and certain supervisory agencies of the government to roll out all these things. And I told you earlier on that the police will make an official statement concerning the casualties, major incidences, losses, and looting, destruction. All these incidences will be captured, and we are going to make an official statement in this regard. So
All right, Mr. Adejobi, if you just let's put you on hold, please. We understand that the Chief of Defense Staff, Christopher Musa, is about to deliver a live broadcast. So we'll go to that live broadcast now to hear what the Chief of Defense Staff has to say. It's with regard to the protest.
Associate freely without any rancor. Well, I'm sure everyone is disappointed with the outcome. Clearly, the security forces have done extremely very well. I'm very happy to mention what especially the Nigerian police force, have shown a lot of professionalism, including where members of the armed forces had to step in. But you can see that we have remained very professional in our conduct, and will continue to do that, as long as the citizens also understand that there's a difference between peace and criminality. What we saw yesterday was, at the beginning, some semblance of a very peaceful demonstration, but which was quickly taken over by a bunch of criminals that don't mean us well. And if you remember, we have warned that there are individuals that are ready to cause mayhem once this starts. And so we want to appeal to Nigerians to understand that the federal government is doing the best it can for the country. The federal government, the present regime, is just there for less than 1 year, and it is not possible for them to have solved every financial, economic, security situation within 1 year. But I'm sure everybody, if we're truthful to ourselves, efforts have been made and have continued to be made. We have seen policies that have been made to address the economic situation on ground, including security situation. Things are improving. We are not where we are, but I can assure you we're heading there. And if we have the support of everyone together, we can bring total peace and the economy will pick up. Just some few days I was in the Niger Delta to also ensure that our production, oil production, increases immediately so that we can have enough funds to fund our economy. So I want to call on all Nigerians to understand with the government. If you have grievances, which I know people have, there are a lot of challenges here and there, and it's not only in Nigeria alone. Everywhere in the world is facing one economic or security crisis or the other. And so it's important to understand that we're not alone. But what we can do is not to allow criminals, individuals that have lost out, to take advantage of this to destroy our country. We should realize that this destruction we're doing, monies have to be used. Monies for development will have to be used to repair these things so that we can move forward. And so instead of doing that, we should come together, make sure nothing is destroyed. The statement, the message has already been passed to the federal government, the state government, and the local government. The local governments are already in place. The president has already directed through the Supreme Court for the local governments to have direct funding from the federal government that will also assist. Please, Nigerians should look up to their local governments, their state governors. The federal government is doing its best. Everybody is putting their hands on them. We know we are challenged as a nation, but we know we will overcome, working together as Nigerians. I want to appeal once again for the support of all Nigerians, to the federal government, to the state government, and to the local governments. Let us avoid anything that will bring mayhem within our communities. Yesterday, we have seen the level of destruction that has been carried out just yesterday. And so you can imagine if this continues for so long. The armed forces and the entire military security agencies will not stand by and see that to continue. So we want to warn those that are recalcitrant, those that don't want to listen, that will not fold our hands and see our country to be destroyed. We will take action, and the action we'll take it professionally. Anyone that is caught will be taken to the courts to be dealt with. So once again, I want to thank you for coming, especially members of the media. And again, for the media, I want to also appeal. I noticed throughout yesterday, all the stations were hooked up to the occasion. This is not an election thing. Don't give them that coverage for them to feel, because there are some of them are looking for just moments of, being on the screen. Together, I can assure you, we are going to win, and we are winning. And at least from today, we have seen the level that it has really gone down. Most state governors that decide to declare a state of emergency have called it off. And working together as Nigerians for Nigeria will succeed. Well, the security agencies cannot be everywhere, and you can just make your predictions to such an extent. The entire area is large. Nigeria with about 900 and almost 1 million square kilometers. It's not going to be easy to secure the entire area. But I think yesterday, the security forces actually stood up to their responsibilities, and that's why you see that it is measured. And it's important for them to understand that working together as a team is what we require. The security forces cannot do it alone. We need all Nigerians to put hands together to make sure we succeed. And we stop these criminals from taking advantage. I mean, yesterday we saw some people breaking down houses, stealing windows, doors. I mean, it was just crazy yesterday. And we don't want that to happen again.
So, mine is still
okay.
Mine is still in line with my going back to all these things that actually happened, the course of radio intelligence and warning Nigeria, this was going to happen. I would like to know what the security agencies and the officers of CDS to prevent criminals from having a new day, which we saw in several quarters.
Well, you see, that is the challenge of when you are dealing with non-state actors. It has to do with the human mind. Nobody can predict the human mind. Efforts were made before now. We have held several meetings. The Office of National Security Advisor had interfaced with almost all the stakeholders in this aspect on the need for us to maintain peace. And most of them have agreed that there was going to be peace. But then, like I said, you cannot read the minds of people. There are a bunch of people who believe that it is only through this medium that they will be able to loot, steal, and destroy. And that's what they tried to do yesterday. But we have arrested most of them that have actually been able to break into places to steal, and they will be prosecuted accordingly.
So my name is
Yes.
I work for Channels.
Okay, look.
This is the two of them.
Yes.
So the protest will you be wondering or asking you support?
No, like I said, we are supporting the police all through, but we are just on standby. The police is doing a good job. They are handling the situation for now. And unless if it breaks beyond what they can handle, then the military will step in. And the military is on standby, and we're watching day and night. Yes.
So my question is, people are afraid for their lives, and we have money coming. Can we guarantee the safety of people that have businesses or civil servants coming to town?
I can assure you that is being done. We're taking steps on that. We are going also behind to ensure that we also identify all those ones that are involved. There are individuals that are actually sponsoring them, pushing them to do these things. We're going after them. But the truth I can tell Nigerians is that everybody should be calm. Everybody should be open-minded in what's going on. Give us information as quickly as possible. I want to appreciate those that have been doing that. And that has greatly assisted us in doing what we're doing. Yes.
Now, in the area of information, for some of us who have been in the streets here yesterday, in as much as we appreciated the restraint by security agencies, because some cases when we covered, we can clearly see that those are not protests. Those are miscreants of the issue.
Definitely.
Now, how can Nigerians of this reach out to the military in case they are in such areas and they want to collaborate with security agencies to alert security agencies that the presence is needed, so far and so forth?
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm sure you have the phone number. Every week we have dialogue with the media during our briefing. So you have direct link with our media organizations. You have their contacts. If there's anything, let us know. We're going to make some, all after this, we're going to make some phone numbers open to the public. Once you see anything, please don't hesitate to report immediately. It's very important. Good afternoon. Yes. Okay.
So, I cannot conclude your perspective, but there's a letter that says if you are looking at the happening, a lot of that there may be another protest coming up October 1st. How do you react?
Well, I think those are just speculators. There are some individuals, like I said, there are some people who just want some moments of fame, and that's what they are trying to do, just to psych up and make sure that there's general fear within the public. Please, Nigerians should disregard that. We are making every effort to ensure that everywhere is secure. I can show you that. Yes. Okay.
And some photos yesterday, some allegations that security operatives will use live cartridges on civilians and that was stored the riots.
I think you guys were all on screen all 24/7. So if such a thing had happened, I've seen some injuries, and we're investigating to find out actually what happened. But I know that a lot of restraint was really exercised yesterday. A lot of tear gas, non-lethal aspects were done. I've seen a lot of people that were injured. Some were mentioned, but we're investigating that to see entirely what happened. Like I said, when situations like this happen, some people take advantage of them, doing one thing or the other to make it look as if it is security agencies that are doing that. But we're taking measures on that. That I can show you. Thank you. All right. Thank you very much. So thank you very much.
Chief of Defense Staff, Major General Christopher Musa, speaking on the protest so far. The CDS took the time to commend the professionalism of security agencies, where he further said that the army is the military is watching, the armed forces, they're watching and will not sit back and allow the country go up in flames. He alludes that this is likely a sponsored protest by certain persons who do not mean well for the country, and believes that Nigerians should look to their state governors, not just the federal government. Says the federal government is doing all it can, but within a year, not much can be done. Speaking specifically to the Tinubu administration, that not much can be done, and the state governors should also be held responsible. A lot of persons have also echoed this. So let's turn our attention now to Architect Ezekiel Nyetok. You've just listened to the Chief of Defense Staff. Before that, you listened to the police talking about professionalism. So in all this, I don't know if you agree with the security agencies that they've been professional enough.
Okay, you know, at a time like this, it took very serious thought for me to accept to be here. Because when you come here and you are a public office holder, there are certain things they expect you to say. But I think, like I said in my opening remarks, the time has come when we must go beyond our comfort zones and talk as Nigerians, which is first what we are. I'm first a Nigerian. My loyalty is first to Nigeria. And then my next loyalty is the man who believed in me and pointed me into the office. I have a real serious concern with our understanding of emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence lets you know what to say and how to say it per time. I actually had expected the police officer to be a little to appear. You see, the police is supposed to be the friend of the people. And at a time like this, Nigeria is hurting. Nigerians are hurting. So if you're addressing Nigerians, there should be a certain level of sobriety and not, rocking on your chair as you bring it on, we can give it to you. I don't think that's the wisest approach to it. It's got to be, you have the right to do it, and it is our place to make sure that you are really protected. But let me say it for whatever it's worth. We're not going to fold our arms and let innocent people, in a thing like this, there are two things that you do. The first is you try to kind of decipher the different groups. And there are three different groups, in my opinion. There's the politicians that would like to make this government look bad for their own political gains, and they could sponsor and do anything. They are one group. There are the people you call the looters, the miscreants. Even that name, it's because we really can't understand what they are going through. What they do is wrong. But they are moved by certain things: hunger, deprivation, frustration. You can see a man or a boy who means well, who is like, look, if I can just enter this shop, I feel collect that Gary where they're there. Do you understand me? He wouldn't want to do it under normal circumstances. One will not justify that action, but you can understand where he's coming from. And then there is the real, honest, sincere, concerned Nigerian youth who is saying, I want to have a good country that works for me. So these three groups of people are working. The first thing government will do is to identify the honest people and engage with them, identify with them, sympathize with them.
If you don't mind, I'll just come in here because the initial question was the reaction to what the CDS said.
I came to that, and that is that.
We need to throw to all the guests.
I have a concern with the concept of emotional intelligence. The things is said, I would say that to a great extent, they've acted professionally, to a very great extent. I've watched the goings on, and in most places, we haven't seen this, like trigger-happy people who are, no, you haven't seen it. But I'm saying that we should go beyond the facts. At a time like this, people are not looking at facts and figures. They are looking at sentiment, emotions. That's why the emotional intelligence aspect is very important in communicating, so that people can feel that you can feel them. And at the time, we need the Nigerians to feel that we can feel them.
One other thing that we heard the Chief of Defense Staff talk about was, the message already being passed.
Yes.
He said the message has already been passed, local government autonomy is in place, yes, which, is true. However, one of the major things that we've heard from these protesters is about the cost of living. The local government autonomy in many ways doesn't affect directly the cost of living. In some ways it may, but generally the issue for many of these protesters is the removal of subsidy. Yeah. And they're asking that it should come back. What do you make of that demand in the light of the situation that we find ourselves in? Is that something that the Tinubu administration can even do?
Perhaps, if you don't mind, I think that before engineer, you're an engineer regardless, before you respond to that, perhaps we could get our other guests on Zoom to respond to react to the CDS's press state briefing. Dakwa Akinyosu, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, and Oluseyi Oyebisi, Executive Director of the Nigerian Network of NGOs. Could you get your reaction in listening to the CDS there? He talked about not giving coverage to these protesters. Perhaps you could speak to that and all the issues that you heard from the CDS.
One of the things that comes clear from the CDS has said was there's been a high level of restraint from the military authorities and the police. I'm tempted to agree with him compared to what we have seen in time past. And as we saw on some videos, the police were actually engaging people at a jota. But we also need to be careful that these police officers are also human beings. They are men and women like you and I. who are sacrificing their own lives for the protection of everybody, whether those governed or those in government. They have to be equally protected. And a situation where they are attacked mindlessly by people who are now described as rioters and not the protesters. There has to be some level. The police also have their own, as the CP mentioned, they also have some powers under or duty under the Constitution of what they can do in such situations. They can arrest, they can use force, and those things are also permissible to the police to protect everybody. And a situation where we just let rioters run riot is not good for all of us eventually. So whatever is done to protect that, I think the leaders of the protest should be in a position as well to call them to order. And I remember he said that, look, there's a court order. Whether it was against one person or the wrong person, everything was trying to keep people streamlined. And if everybody's in Ojota Park, which was the situation in Lagos that we saw, they were in a location where they could be easily addressed. But the situation you have in Abuja, some people are coming from Yanya, some are coming from different parts of the state. It makes it difficult and stretches the capacity of the police. We all know that as police are stretched right now, military forces stretched, and a situation where we are creating more problems by ourselves, giving room to stress to overrun all of us, is not good for us at the end of the day. So I think we should exercise some restraint. As I said earlier, it is good to fire a warning shot and hold on, and then say, government, if you don't act. But supporting a 10-day process in which we rest or we can continue on Monday is damaging the economy. Employers as well, for people in business, how can they pay salaries? How will they run their business that they can continue? The situation is bad, everybody, but some people within this are still struggling to make ends meet. But when we damage everything, those in government, yes, they're asking for legitimate things. They're asking the government to, hey, we want to see our president, we want to hear. But if he hasn't come out yet, he has sent different layers of people. Let's take that now and see how we can move on with the situation.
I think we could let Mr. Oluseyi Oyebisi react to the CDS as well, and then my colleague Kayla will continue with the conversation on the demands of the protesters that she was directing towards Mr. Etoko.
Yes, I think the point we are now is a point where we all need to have a common understanding. One is the fact that in a democracy, opinions are valid, all right, and we have to listen to what everyone is saying. I do think not covering the protest would not be the right way to go. It's important that we also provide feedback. And so that, because one way that our leaders can get to know what is happening is also through the media. It is not that the media is giving them energy to grow, but again, the media has a right to inform, and I think the media is doing that. Going back to what ACP Adejobi said around that woman that brought a 2-month-old child to the protest. And that was the picture I was alluding to when I started my conversation, that it shows the scale and the nature of hardship. If someone that just gave that, having going through that excruciating pain, would bring that child out for protest, doesn't that tell us something, that there's hardship in the land? It tells us that citizens are not taking it anymore. And for those of us that have protested before, like he did say, those of us that have done student activism, we understand the thesis. But it is to also say that intelligence is telling us that the nature of protest is changing with the advent of social media, with the social and economic hardship. Citizens do not trust any leader at this time, whether civil society leader, whether NGO leader, whether labor leader, they don't trust anyone, so they want a leaderless protest. And there are pros and cons in that. And I do think, the police now need to find a way around understanding that and taking communication with protesters seriously. If 40 years ago, Sikiru Ayinde Barrister had sang that kind of song, those that are protesting on the road today will be in the age range of 80, 25. They weren't there when they sang that song. Hence, there's a need for us to balance that understanding that it is the moment of truth for these people also to do what we've all done in times past. I mean, he has also gone on, while he was in school, he said he had protested. He took the moment because he also needed to speak and let his voice be heard. So these citizens are also doing the same about now. So we need to understand them and ensure that we protect them according to what the law says. We are also telling them that you can't be violent. It is called peaceful protest. And no one wants this country to burn down, especially on the part of civil society organizations. What we are for is that all of these things that citizens are saying, we have said it through conferences, through letters, through communiques, through consultations, through advocacy visits. It seems nothing is changing. And when citizens decide it's time for them to do their own thing, we just have to allow them to do. But in doing that, we are saying, do not vandalize public properties. Do not kill anyone. Do not loot. It is not within your right to loot. It is not within your right to kill anyone. It is not within your right to injure anyone. The right that you have is that of peaceful protest, and that's what we are standing for as civil society.
The issue that Mr. Adejobi raised when he was responding to that issue, it is valid indeed. I mean, if of course, the comment of the CDS is no doubt something that is coming from his own wealth of experience as well, the more amplification, the more relevance and all of those things. However, over the years, over the months, a good number of people feel that their voices weren't being heard until now. So, if we've been giving government coverage for such a long time and the people feel that no one was listening to them, now is a very strong statement that is being made. Is government really listening? More on this when we return from this break. Well, thank you for staying with us. Well, let me come to you, Mr. Akinoshun. I mean, you listened to the CDS, you've listened to the police as well, the force PRO speak. Which of these statements resonates with you, and you want to add whether or not you think government has heard the people this time around?
Sorry, I missed the last part. Whether government has done what?
Whether the government has heard, not just listened, but has actually heard the people this time around.
Without a doubt, I think the government is hearing. I think the government is hearing. And whether they are going to take corrective steps. Of course, there are some people in government who are not speaking properly or the way we expect. But the important thing is that the message is loud and clear. The whole system has been shut down for 2 days now. And there's no way that anyone that the government is not hearing. It is the corrective steps that can be taken. As the CP and the Chief of Army Staff had said, there are issues of security for everybody. I mean, we refer to some people as miscreants who are causing trouble. Don't forget that these are also human beings who were celebrated on the day they were born. But by circumstances of nature or where they are today, they have taken a different. And part of it is also because of the failing of past governments. They didn't become miscreants today, but they've been unable to get good education or good jobs along the way. So there still are fellow Nigerians who are just misguided and misused. And when we call them miscreants, we need to remember that they can be turned around for the better if the opportunity exists.
Right,
but a situation where it becomes, we see it as us against them, is not what goes well for all of us. We have to find ways to contain, and that is why I say that the organizers of the protest also have a duty to bring it within a reasonable time frame before it gets out of their own control. They are able to control a day or two maximum. But when it starts going beyond that, they are also exhausted. They are nowhere to be found in this because they're also overwhelmed by the sheer number of people who are fueled by hunger. They are fueled by desperation. They are also fueled by bad governance. This governance issue is what they're complaining about, that governance can be better. You cannot be asking us to sacrifice when we see certain level of opulence and recklessness on the other side. What we're asking for is that there should be a consequence for bad behavior. If somebody has been caught that did something wrong in government and has been quickly punished, then when you arrest others on the streets and say you are reining them by the police, nobody's going to complain. But it still seems that we're having a situation where the balance is not even. Those in government, those who have the opportunity, take our money, are well treated.
All right, Mr.
Those who are on the streets are disciplined faster. And we have to find a way of being able to balance this. Otherwise, this polity is going to continue to be tilted. However, at this time, my admonition will be for the leaders of the protest to say, let's talk. Government, whether government is deaf or not, I'm sure they've heard. But even if they are pretending not to hear, let's give them a chance. Let's recalibrate. See how we can get this thing better.
Okay. All right, Mr. Akinyosha, I'm sure I believe the government can actually hear, what's being said at this time. But I'm still looking at what the Chief of Defense Staff, his address earlier. He also did mention that the media should not give the protesters so much coverage. What do you make of that?
No, well, as long as the coverage is balanced, it is good for those inside to know what is going on outside. Without a doubt, the media are doing a good job. And whether they are covered or not doesn't solve the problem. Looking at what we look like internationally, because the media coverage within the local parameters is not a problem. It is what we look like on the international scene. But don't forget that this problem is not confined to Nigeria. Hunger riots are not only in Nigeria. All over the world, we're seeing it in several other places. And we cannot shy away from the fact that we have a problem. And the earlier the problem is brought to even, because many of the leaders who are not seeing it on the media may not know what's going on. Because it is only a few sections of government that get security reports. All the other people that don't get security reports are also fed from media reports like we can see. So through the network today, I have an idea of what's going on in Nasarawa. I have an idea of what's going on in Kaduna. I know that some governors have taken proactive steps and called these riots. So if more governors can learn from the ones who have come out early to say, hey guys, we're together, we're working to solve this situation, I believe it also shows other people how they can work better. So I think the media are doing a good job and they can only help us to get this thing better.
I want to be able to get Mr. Oyebisi to, talk to us a little bit about some of the things that we also heard the CDS talk about. He kept mentioning, like I said earlier, he kept mentioning the local government autonomy has been granted, or your message has been passed already. But one of the major issues, like I said earlier, that the protesters have been talking about is the cost of living. And they attribute that to the removal of fuel subsidy. Is that something that the government can grant these protesters?
In all fairness to you, it will be a difficult thing to do, especially when you understand the economics and the sociology of this. But also understanding that what we have today is not a problem that started today. It's on the back of long years of social and economic hardship. And again, I keep referring to what the ACP said around 40 years ago. We've been having this narrative as to hardship. However, I think there's a speed that we need that we are not getting, especially if you look at the 2 trillion that the administration reeled out. And that's why, for those of us that are following the news, that are listening to what is happening, we do understand that government is doing something. But let's situate it. If you have given 15 million, according to what the Minister of Information said, we've given 15 million support to the vulnerable out of 130 million. That means you still have, out of 130 million that official statistics in Nigeria told us are poor in multidimensional poverty, health poverty, furniture poverty, period poverty, income poverty. And we've only been able to help 15 million. It shows that we still have about 115 million of Nigerians that would still have the propensity to protest. Especially when you look at the definition of poverty, which is, the income that can help you to be able to meet your basic needs, whether through jobs or whether through social protection. You look at the unemployment rate in the country at the moment, and you look at the social investment, how much it can realistically cover, then you begin to say that, okay, yes, government is working. However, we need to grow to scale. In growing to that scale, the economic indices that we have at the moment doesn't show that reality that, we can do that. But we need some level of subsidy. And again, if you pay attention to what government is doing, and I'm not speaking for government, we only need to balance this because this requires an uncommon understanding on the part of everyone. Is to say that the government is saying they are doing 64 trucks of grains across each of the 36 states of the Federation. Again, in a state that has like 5 million people, how many people would that reach? All right. So there is certainly the need for us to start thinking of how to grow the economy. But in growing the economy, it's not a 6 month, it's not a 1 year, it's not a 2-year journey. It's a long haul. So where does this common understanding come in? The common understanding comes, and I use this analogy. If it's a father, I have 10 children, all right? Of all of the 10 children, we only have 2 eggs and 1 loaf of bread. As the father, I am not expected to eat if I'm a responsible father. I'm expected to give that to the children. In fact, their mother, she's also not expected to eat until all of the children would have eaten. So it means that we have to ration. So the resources we have now, are we rationing it for those that are leaders? Are they eating before we eat? That's the reality of the conversation, and that's why I think that the common communication needs to change, both in body language and also in what we are seeing in terms of realities, plus the emotional intelligence that the other speaker spoke about. This is a period of austerity, for a lack of a better word, and we must see it in governance. We must also see it at our individual level of activities, and that is how citizens can trust us. The communication also has to be distilled. Not everyone is on social media. We are missing a lot of opportunities to communicate with citizens. What happens to communication in BRTs? What happens to communication at our public airports? What happens to communication on the train where you have a TV that you're looking at and is not showing anything? How do you break this down? What happens to the president writing to all citizens via night post, for instance?
Well, let's get Mr. Akinyosun to also weigh in on that, because the economic indices, I've heard a lot of what Mr. Oyebisi is saying, and we've all heard that. But crux of the matter, many Nigerians believe that the reason why they're going through such a hard time economically is because fuel subsidy has been removed. Should it be brought back? We're seeing that in some of the demands online, that they want fuel subsidy back. We need subsidies. We can't survive the way we're going. Is that the call? Should the government heed to that and acquiesce?
This is a difficult position for government at this time. The ship has sailed. There's a lot. Even as we speak now, there is still some subsidy that is being brought in to stabilize the price. You cannot remove what is going on across the globe from what is happening in Nigeria. It is painful that this is the only product that we have as Nigerians, and that we have to continue to pay so much for it because we say that is the only thing we enjoy. However, if government is going to subsidize it, it is going to affect many other things that they need to do. And like I said, if people see a balance, that government is not wasteful in some places, and then you're asking us to sacrifice in another, it will always come out better. But a situation where you see some projects that you think are totally unnecessary, in a situation where you are expecting that I should sacrifice and pay more for oil, for petrol, then it becomes more difficult to balance. But I believe at this time, it has gone beyond the point where you can roll back the subsidy and say we're taking out subsidy. It is going to affect the price of electricity, and there are many other things that are tied to this that will be difficult to roll back. They've tried in their own way to give some palliatives, but palliatives is the solution. it is generating more income for the whole country. Be told the country is not making enough money to balance with the amount of people that we have. And unless there's a correspondence between the increase in our income as a nation, we will not be able to manage all the subsidies we're expecting. We will have to pay more for electricity. We have to pay more, painful as it is, if we do these things. But if we see pity on the side of those who are spending it, and we believe everybody is making a cut. Recently, the House of Reps said they were cutting their salaries by 50%. That was a move in a good direction. If more people see things like that and their utterances are guarded, you will find that the agitation will not be so bad. Cost of goods are not as expensive as it should, as we see it now. But you also find that Nigerians are also capitalizing on transportation expenses. So what I can do to add 50 naira to it, if I add 200 naira to it, people do that without looking at the down consequences. I just want to make my money to survive the hard time. And if there's no way of price monitoring or effective governance rate, nobody's controlling. So price of petrol went up by 100%. Yes. How much should my price of my goods go up? Everybody blames the price of goods for price of petrol for that. But sometimes, yes, you have to buy petrol from the money you make, but the markup, the difference is not always as much as we find people capitalizing on. So government is between the rock and a hard place now. Even if they take it back, people are not going to reduce prices, they've increased. So you will find that there's extortion going on in other areas. Indeed. But how can we move forward with this? We should be looking at.
Architect, this is something that we've heard a lot. I even heard the Minister of State for Agriculture say this, about the fact that we have cartels everywhere, even if we start to pay subsidies, and he just mentioned it right now, even if we resume subsidies on everything, the chances that prices are going to go down are very slim. Is this a fact? Are we, because I've heard, at least I've heard my mother say it before, Terry, when our parents used to say, nothing goes down. The price of nothing's price goes down in Nigeria. Is that what we're dealing with right now? And how do you manage that when we're looking at what these protesters are asking for?
Okay. You see, this is my first time of getting into government. All my life, I've always rejected, turned down anything about appointment. So I've been on the other side of the divide all my life. And coming in here, I want to situate the first blame on us public office holders, because we cross the line and we forget too soon where we came from. Forget about those who are professional government people. There are people who have been there all their lives. I don't envy them. But there are some of us that have been out there and then we've come in here. The very first thing I would say is that the communication between government and the people has been very poor. And the means of communication has been worse. As a result, people don't really know that government has 5 loaves of bread and 2 fishes. They don't know that. They believe that government has over 50 loaves of bread.
It's more because so the when person you in see, government looks like he has 50 loaves of bread.
So, yes.
He's buying SUVs for his child. He's living lavishly.
I agree. More so when we see how some of them are living. So I think that Mr. President needs to look hard at his people who are giving him a bad name. You understand me? I say that because I'm in the Federal Housing Authority. And by the time the youth know the exact, first is that as far as they are concerned, FHA is nothing, because over the past 50 years, they've only done 50,000 housing units. In the past 10 years, they can't remember which new estates they have done. So as far as they are concerned, these are sort of people who have just come in, they are going to take their own, and nothing is going to come to us. You understand me? And yet, they'll be shocked to know that none of us, from the MD to the EDs, is driving any new car. We're all driving the old Project Hilux that we met. Because when we came in here, I believe the president did that to all others. He pulled our ears and said, Nigerian, especially the youth, he said that specifically, especially the youth, the first-time homeowner and then the young people, they need to have houses. You must give them houses. So he put us on our toes.
And I believe he did that. I want to believe he did that to others. As a result, we came in from February. None of us has any new car. Secondly, by now we have gone to 26 states by road with those old cars. We've been able to meet governments, sit down 2 hours, 3 hours with each of the governors, worked out and gotten prime lands. Look, we have a man who, I don't know how he survives, but the MD CEO, you know, Honorable Oyetunde Ojo, I challenge any Nigerian to go to FHA by 8 o'clock if he will not meet myself and himself and the other EDs in office. And I challenge them to come back by 7:30 if he will not meet us still in the office. Yes. Do you understand? What I'm trying to say, Nigerians need to hear some of these things, but the communications have not been there. Okay. They need to know that within this month of August, they are going to have a portal for first home owners in 26 states. We have the land, we have the funds, we have the designs, and we're going to activate that. So when the protesters know that the young people from September can start to see houses built that targets them primarily, they'll say, okay,
how many houses did you say?
No, we have up to 100 hectares. Do you understand?
How many houses are you?
No, we can have up to 10 or 5,000
How many are you hoping to accommodate?
No, it's going to be based on need. Need means when we open the portal, register, and we build to need, not speculative, not political, because we're all professionals. Nigerians have known me as somebody in housing, so I'm not going to do something that is not professional. So as soon as we open the portals, we have the land, we have the money, so we are going to build to need.
For what class of Nigerians?
Exactly. We are targeting first time. The president said first time home owners. And so we're going to do studios.
Well, you know, I know you're just giving preliminary information. Yes. But I think anybody listening to you will be worried as to this is one of those schemes that
No. I'll tell you something. I can tell you that in channels, people know that Nyaito does not play. That's why I could come here and say,
well, it's not your money. It's not your policy.
The money is there. The land is there. The people are there. So what we've been doing from February, we got the land, we went into strategic designing and engagement. So as from September, we're going to start groundbreaking strategically, and we open a portal, and based on the need pattern per state. So what we'll do is that every state should make sure that their people get to register on that portal. FHA renewed home, we're going to give that. They make sure, because we're not going to build 10,000 housing or 1,000 houses when there are just 500 people. Do you understand me? But skepticism has been the problem of Nigerians. Oh, that's how they talk. And then you discover that people are going to apply, and then we're going to take them and build the house, and you're like, oh. So my advice is, if you know you've believed me over the years, and I'm not a politician, I don't talk politics, I'm a professional hardcore, my advice is, especially the young people, go and register. We'll do the profiling, and we want to make sure the land is there. The president has released 2 trillion. Do you understand me? 2 trillion? Yes, 2 trillion for infrastructure and housing. And in housing, he has said Federal Mortgage Bank and Federal Housing Authority. So we have the land. The governors have given us, in Kaduna State, they gave us 150 hectares. In Jos, at Rayfield, so we are getting prime land. At Jos, they gave us 100 hectares.
Okay, but if you're building houses at Rayfield,
yes.
If you're building houses at Rayfield, people that live in Sabo,
yes.
Would they be able to live in those houses?
Affordable houses for Nigerians. Starting with the low-income earners.
Will this be on housing? Needs basis? Yes, needs basis. You said.
Exactly.
So, for example, it's the kind of house I want built that you will build, or
no. When you want to start to determine the kind of house I want, you don't need a house. But when you say, I have a 1-bedroom, and you're asking me, does it have 3
So are you building 1 bedroom?
We are building studios, we are building 1 bedroom, 2 bedrooms primarily. Then, of course, other Nigerians are entitled to, we are going to now build 3 bedrooms. Then there's what we call diaspora city. And in our diaspora, we believe that a man who's been in Abuja all along is a diaspora, local diaspora, and in Akwa Ibom. So he would want to have a house in Akwa Ibom. Do you understand me? So we're having that as a package. It's very well articulated.
It's affordable housing.
Affordable. That's the first thing. As a result,
what are we talking about? What's the price range?
I'll tell you this. I'll tell you that. Mr. President said to make it affordable, forget about tiles for the people. Forget about all these fancy things. You understand me?
Tiles are fancy.
Yes. Let's be realistic. When you get into your house, you can take your time. and put some of those things.
Put carpets.
Why do I want, yes, why do I want to put tiles for you? And then add, you know, the cost of finishings of tiles and POP and everything. They are the things that make the house of 5 million to go to 10 million.
So you were talking about a range.
Yes.
What price range are we looking at?
We are targeting from 5 million. That's what we're targeting. And when we did a kind of affordability profiling stuff, and we discovered that a man on minimum wage today, given a 25-year-old mortgage, no long mortgage, which the president has provided, can afford a house of 4.5 million. Do you understand?
A man within what age range?
No, if you are, maybe because of my position and the president's disposition and my MDCO, we have a lot of what they call it. We have a lot of concern for the young people. We have a lot of concern for the young people.
Strictly for the youths.
Any man, no, not strictly for them, but I can tell you that 60-70% we're going to target the young people. So any man that is below 35 has at least 25 years, you know, where he's eligible
as long as he can afford, he's being paid at least minimum wage.
Yes, he's being paid at least minimum wage. So this is what Nigerians don't know. And people are going to like, wow, is that possible? And when they see that we have already gotten the land.
So let me ask you, how will this work in states where the minimum wage will not be paid?
I'll tell you how it is. You know, the best way to eat an elephant is to take one bite at a time. What we're doing, we're opening up a portal. And in all those portals, people are applying. And we are doing, you know, the portal is very sophisticated. FHA is fully digitalized. So it will do a profiling of affordability. So we'll be able to know how many people can afford a house of 4.5 million, how many can afford a house of 5.5 million, 8 million, 10 million. On the basis of that, we'll now build to need, even if it's in phases. If we are not afraid to go on 100, 100, 100, 200, 300. As the needs come, the land is already there, the money is already there. Do you understand? So we're not looking for money, we're not looking for land. Technology is to a penny in Nigeria.
So those applying will part with nothing?
Yes, no.
Initial payments, no initial payments?
No, we are working such that we can pay from your salary. You don't need to make so. The president is, that's why sometimes when they talk about president, I feel sorry for him sometimes because some of these things that he's made available, people don't know. So they're like, what is he doing? He's not doing anything. And the young people are incensed. But when they know that there is a chance they could own a house, and let me leak a secret. When I give you this house, it's not compulsory that you must be the one living in that house. Imagine a young person having a house in Redfield. Very likely he will put a tenant. And the money he will get, even without working, the rent he will get from it can pay the mortgage and then give him some leverage to take some other things. That's why we want to give those houses in prime areas so that they serve as a financial empowerment instrument. The president has really, hounded is not a good word, really breathed down our throat to make sure this is done. And if he does that to FHA, I believe he's doing that to other places.
So this commences in September, you said?
Oh, yes.
Has registration
The registration starts, and we already have the land. We're not looking for. Cross River has given us 2 lands.
Okay, so that's another thing. The states that have given lands.
26 of them
26
so far.
states, and this is supposed to be in all the states.
Yes. The others, they've sent for us, but we've not been able to go because you need to go and need to also work. And when we go with a full team, and we go by road with the old hillocks that we met. Nigerians need to know that there are people who are serious about business. The MD, I'm sorry to say, is a relation of Mr. President, and yet he goes everywhere by road and he stays in the office morning till night. There are people who are serious to make a change in this country. And I believe that FHA is not the FHA. You go to
you know what's funny is, I'm sure Nigerians are listening and saying, do you want to be applauded for doing that? That's not a big deal,
don't applaud us, just wait. But they know, Nigerians know me. They know me. That's why I can come here and say, there are certain things I've said here that can make sure that I don't go to work on Monday. Do you understand me? But I don't care. I want to be able to be professional and say things and be believed. Because there's life after FHA.
Okay, would like to say a very big thank you to you. We were hoping to throw a question quickly to
Mr.
Adejobi, but I think his
is he online?
If he's here with us, let's just quickly ask you a question or two before we say goodbye. Mr. Adejobi, I don't know whether or not you have any updates. I'm sure you're satisfied with the reaction of the CDS, where he's commended the security agencies on the level of professionalism, but we've also heard about the situation with the media and concerns. I don't know what sort of assurances you can give us for our people in the field so that they are not harmed and they can do their job without being afraid of what could possibly happen. All right, so Mr. Adejobi apparently is not, must be having some technical challenges, but would like to say a very big thank you to our guests who've been with us since 2 p.m. SCP Olumuyiwa Ogunjobi was here with us earlier. We also had Dakpo Akinyosho, who is a senior advocate of Nigeria, Oluseyi Oyebisi, executive director of Nigeria Network of NGOs, and architect Ezekiel Nyetok, the executive director of the Federal Housing Authority. I'd like to thank you all for coming.
Thank you, and what a great pleasure.